So I'm sitting here in this, watching these people go up on the screen, hearing what they're being charged with, seeing their I-bonds and their other bonds of maybe, okay, you've got $4,000, not knowing anything. They put Bailey up on the screen and say what he was arrested for, that he had a $250,000 bond and there was no bail. The judge was David Butler, who was Bailey's attorney ad litem during the divorce, or during my adoption. So I was terrified that he was going to recognize Bailey. And then Judge Butler was the judge in my divorce. And I thought he's going to know me. I was humiliated. I was mortified to think that this man that helped me adopt this little boy was going to recognize him and judge him, which clearly he was going to judge him, but it was now his job. And I struggled because I'd worked so hard to not have him judged, and now I had no option but for him to be judged. So I followed what Jessica Woods was, the assistant state's attorney that spoke when Bailey was on the screen. I thought, okay, cool, she's going to be his attorney. So I get up after he's on the screen, and I spoke to the sheriff's. I said, "Can we leave now?" And he went, "You can leave whenever you want. It's a public courtroom." Okay. So I take off. My husband's following me. "What are you doing?" I said, "I got to talk to her." He's like, "I don't think you can do that." I chased her into the elevator, and there were 2 or 3 other attorneys with her. And I just looked at her and said, "What does that mean? I'm his mom. I'm Bailey's mom. What's that mean?" And they all just weren't sure what I was about to do, because I'm the one that probably at that point looked like I was losing it, So she's like, "Hold on just a minute, So she gets out of the elevator and she comes around and she's like, "Well, this was, the arraignment, and then you've got, your bond, and then you've got this, and, your next step," she said, "he's most likely going to be transferred to McFarland. And then after they're ready for the big hearing and he's had all that time for the treatment, he'll come back for the hearing." So that's good because he needs help, he needs help. He can't, this is not the setting for him. Do they have doctors here? Are there therapists here? Is he going to be treated? Is he going to be with other people? She went, "No, that's why he needs to go to McFarland." And she said the officers, the arresting officers stated as well that he needs mental health treatment. So we're all in, agreement that that's where he needs to be. So that's good, but then I'm like, wait a minute. I said, "I gotta tell you something." I said, Bailey's birth mother, when I met her for the first time, I met her in a padded cell in full restraints at McFarland. And Bailey, his whole life, has wanted to be there at that hospital because he wanted to kill her. She's like, "What?" I said, "So if he goes to McFarland, here's her name. Can you just make sure people know, because I haven't been in contact with her since '98. But if she's still in and out of there, I need someone to be able to look out and know this." She's like, "Okay, fine," So then the next hearing comes and they said, "Oh, and you've got a public defender," and then I'm, kind of learning what Law and Order doesn't teach you. And from there, I told Bailey's public defender that he needs help, that jail's not the place for him, that prison's not the place for him. I said, he's not insane, but he's got a lot of mental illnesses. I said, he's got 9 diagnoses. This is a child inside of a man's body that needs help. And he saw it and said, "You're right, yes, yes, yes." So I kept asking, "What about the psych eval?" No, we don't want to do that." "What do you mean you don't want to do that?" He goes, "That'll show too much." I said, "How will it show too much?" He said, "Well, as his public defender, my job is to get him all of the charges dropped, on probation, with nothing." I said, No. That's stupid, because there's no one that's going to allow that. All of these charges is that he's guilty. We know he's guilty. Bailey knows he's guilty. You can't let him out." "Well, that's my job." I said, "Your job is to protect and look out for the best interest of your client." He said, "You're right, it is." I said, "Okay, well, he's mentally ill. What are our options?" I said, "I've been told, you can go guilty by reason of insanity, or, not guilty by reason of insanity, or guilty by mental illness. I want guilty by mental illness because that's what he is." He said, "Well, we'll discuss that. I'll discuss it with my client. So he talked to Bailey at the jail. Then I talked to Bailey, and then I called Ron Lewis back, and he said, I can't speak to you. I don't have any signed papers from Bailey. I said, I'm his power of attorney over everything, and I have those papers. He said, that doesn't work. So I went to the jail and said, I need Bailey to fill out whatever it is that allows me to talk to Ron and anyone else in this building. So they had it done. So then he had come to me after one of the next hearings and said, okay, Bailey signed the paper, so here's where we're at. And I'm still stressing to him the importance of getting Bailey help. And he's telling me, oh, no, I'll get this one dropped because that's such a gray area that that's not going to stand. These other 3 are all probationable, so they'll drop those and he'll just have probation. I said, how's that going to help him? He goes, well, that's what my job is. That's what I'm supposed to do. So then as the hearings went on, we had to waive his right to a jury trial. This is going to be a 10-minute trial. He's going to be asked 3 questions. I said, okay. And they said he's just going to have to answer these 3 questions. So that's fine. Well, I guess Jessica Woods and Ron had met with Judge Drzeski before the hearing and explained he's got some mental illnesses and he's autistic, so you're going to really have to kind of, Jessica said, I told him, you have such an intelligent vocabulary that I need you to bring it down a few notches. He's smart, but you can't talk over his head. And he said, okay. Well, it got down to the burden of proof. And the word burden to Bailey, as we said, he's always been a burden to me in his words. His autism does not allow him to understand that there can be more than one meaning to a word. So to him, he's thinking, I'm a burden to my mom, so how's the burden of proof? I don't get it. And the judge, said, okay, you've got the jury box. Now, Bailey, I've got a coffee mug here. I say it's half full. What if all but one of those, the one says, no, it's not. It's, 5/8 or it's 3/4. He says, that doesn't work. Do you get it? And I can just see Bailey, just this blank stare. And I had my daughter with me at that point, and I just started crying. And she took her scarf and gave it to me so I could wipe my eyes, because before me I see an 18-year-old man who is that 2-year-old boy that first moved in with me, that didn't understand, that didn't know, that was scared and bewildered and just intimidated beyond belief. And I wanted to raise my hand. I didn't know if I could say something or if I'd be kicked out. And the judge finally saw me and was looking right at me, and he said, Bailey, I think what I'm going to do is maybe give you a little bit of time to talk to someone. Maybe there's someone here in the courtroom that you'd like to talk to, because they could maybe help you understand. We were an hour or so into this hearing after it was supposed to be 10 minutes. And Bailey says, okay. And he says, who would you like to speak to? And he's still staring right at me past Bailey. But he's not understanding that to Bailey, who has no eye contact, that the judge is probably just being autistic himself and not catching on. And so Bailey goes, well, I guess my attorney? And he turns around and looks at me, and I'm going, and he's like, my mom? The judge went, yes, your mom. We're going to take a short recess. We'll give you time to speak with your mom. The deputy that's in the courtroom went, we can't do that. We can't do that. And he goes, yeah, we can. He said, no, we can't do that. And he goes, it's my courtroom. He said, but it's never been done before. He said, I'll call the sergeant. So the judge calls the sergeant gives him permission. The deputy is, I'm sure what I know. He goes and talks to the sergeant. He comes back. He looks at me and he's like, is she going to have to be patted down? And they said, no, she got through security. She's fine. If you have everything in your pockets, take them out. He's like, okay, come on. And I'm walking through those doors, back by the judge's area. And he says, this has never happened before. This has never happened before. So there's a first for everything. Can I hug him? And he went, no, you can't touch him. I said, okay. So we go back to the bullpen area. And I'm just like, this is where you guys sit, while you're waiting? And they'd already specified that they would not have a whole lot of people there to kind of stir Bailey up and to help him stay focused. So I went back and I said, okay, Bailey, you know the word burden, you know how we've talked about things having more than one meaning? So I'm explaining it to him. And I said, you know, you need to know what a jury trial is, what a bench trial is, and the burden of proof. So you have to be able to answer those 3 questions. And I said, you know, a bench trial, the judge is going to be the only one that will hear this case, that will hear of everything that happened that night. He's going to be the one to judge you, to make that decision. A jury trial is going to be all those chairs filled with people. All your life, Bailey, we fought to not have you judged. We don't have a choice now. But your option is to have all those people or just the judge. And I said the judge's job is to judge. It's your choice, but you need to understand the burden of proof. And we explained it, and I said, you know, does this all make sense? Do you get it? And you could see that, yes, he did, that he was understanding. So the judge gave him like 30 minutes or so and took the other case and then brought Bailey back in and said, okay, have you had time to speak to someone about this? And he said, yes. And he said, who did you speak to? He said, my mom. He said, okay, now I want you in your own words to tell me what a jury trial is. And Bailey explained it to him.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, okay, you know, it's, you know, your own words, that's what I wanted, a little, you know, yes, that's good. And he said, now what's a bench trial? And he told him, and he said, now the burden of proof, what's that? And he told him, and he said, okay, now you're able to make your own decision. What do you want? And Bailey said, I want a bench trial, I just want you. He said, are you understanding? And he, you know, clarified it all again, and Bailey said yes. So it was about 3 hours of total hearing time before that decision was made.
When was he evaluated? At what stage?
It was early on, and I kept asking, you know, we need a psych eval. He said, no, you don't want one, you don't want one. I said, yes, I do. He goes, no, because if everyone finds out, you know, what else really in his history, that won't be good for him. I said, how could it not be good for him? I said, we're supposed to tell the truth. I said, people, we need to have that out. He goes, no, that'll hurt him too much.
Who did it? You know, was it Dr. Killian? Or?
Yes, it was. Okay. And so I had asked him, I asked Bailey actually who it was, and he told me it was Dr. Killian. And it was May, I want to say May, not long after his arrest.
And he was found fit.
He was found fit to stand trial.
Right.
But as Ron Lewis told me, he said he was found fit to stand trial, but he said that doesn't mean he's fit for life.
Right.
I said, okay, that's fine, but he had said the whole time he didn't have a psych eval. And so he had told me, you know, and they had told me at the state's attorney's office that the jail is able to make that decision, that if someone is medicated and have been seeing a doctor, that they are considered fit to stand trial because they're medicated. So they're obviously seeing someone. Otherwise, they would be locked up in insane asylum, basically.
So I sat through the bench trial, and the judge made a ruling. What did you think of his, first of all, explain what did the judge rule?
As far as his charges,
Mm-hmm.
he dropped the attempted discharge of a firearm towards a peace officer, which I disagree with. I agree with the state's attorney in that attempt is the attempt, that all that was left to do was pull the trigger. And they've not been released, but I've told them all, if you were to listen to the audio tapes that have been recorded during all of our visits, Bailey has said that he wishes he would have pulled the trigger, that that's what he should have done.
He's told you that?
Yes. Yeah, so I disagreed with that one. He kept the other charges, which, I mean, obviously since he stole my gun and the police still have it, those all do need to still stand. I understand that they're all probationary allowed charges. In the most difficult decision a parent could make, have actually asked the state and the judge and the pre-sentence investigators to move him to a facility where he can receive help, because I don't feel he should be released right now, because clearly, if the help was available in this community that they say he will get once he's released, this wouldn't have happened. He would, because he has no insurance now, he has no job, he has no income. He would be, the only people that would see him were the Center for Human Services. Clearly, they did nothing for him. And as I've told Ron Lewis, after the last hearing, and he said, okay, that one was dropped, we're gonna go for probation. I said, no, that's stupid. I said, do you have an extra room in your house? I don't feel safe with him at my home. If he were to come home, I think he would act on every threat he's made and every comment he's said while he's been in the jail and throughout his life. He has said that when he left that night, he was headed towards my ex-husband's home to kill him. But he said he's navigationally challenged and didn't know how to get there. And that when he gets out, he will do it again and again and again until he kills or is killed. He says that he is a killer. I said, you're not a killer. He goes, yes, I am. I am a killer. That's who I am, what I am. When I get out of here, I'll do it again.